Yeah, hey guys, welcome back to Stranger Than Fiction. So on Spotify now, if you've got a playlist, you can hit a little button that says mix. You ever done that?
No.
And it actually mixes the tracks together. So it's sort of like, I don't know how it works exactly. Using AI, it kind of matches the beats, then stretches it back out into the next song.
Oh.
Yeah, particularly if you're a man like DJ Dins, you might want to hit the old. Might be doing them out of a job, unfortunately.
Yeah,
just hit the mix.
Yeah, mate.
Hit the mix on Spotify. So Trov, how are you? You're just sort of battling a little head cold there, mate.
The lurgy, it does make you appreciate your health. It does make you do that, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Because you don't like it. It's not good. It's nothing too bad. It's just a head cold. But there's a time, you get the beginning time of the head cold where you just get that itch. One eye waters, one nostril itches, and then you just get that sneezy, itchy. And I got some medic. The guy said, "Tell you what's good for that: hay fever stuff that you put up your nose."
Squirt, yeah, you got to get the squirt.
I did the squirty hay fever stuff, and it is pretty good actually. It's pretty good because I went to a play on Friday night and I thought, this is going to be really bad, especially for the people I'm sitting next to, because I'm going to have to be snuffing and puffing the whole way through. But I didn't. I think I used my tissues twice in a 2-hour period, so that was pretty good. Don't take much meds for the cold. Like to just let it run its course. But I'm feeling better, so that's all right.
I really enjoy a squirt up the nose. It took me about 37 years of life to discover the nose squirt, because if I have even a sort of 45% blockage in one nostril, I can't sleep because I feel like I'm kind of suffocating a bit. So you give a little squirt about half an hour before bed, and actually that's what got me through COVID. I was a wreck. It was because I kept sort of falling asleep and then kind of doing that snory wake up.
Oh yeah,
and it would just jolt me up again, and I was like, I think it was night 4, right? So I tested quite strongly on the rat. And it was night 4. I think I was about to throw my toys out of the pram.
I was about to check in. I was down in my tent by the river, by the Cox's River. I was about to check in the next day on night 4.
Yeah, and then
it wasn't well.
And then morning 5, I actually got to sleep. And then morning 5, I was like, okay, I think this is achievable. And pretty much the next day after that, I could have, because everyone's scared. So you don't go anywhere till you're tested negative back in the day. I reckon I could have just got into the world and kept living my life like an absolute boss. It was a nice excuse, though. When you get lots of phone calls from people, particularly in my line of work, you can say, look, I got COVID, and they just left you alone. They're like, right, all right, say no more, brother. You're in lockdown. And, you don't want to be getting out here sort of, spreading that around. So what's your take on this hantavirus? There's been, honestly, not a lot. That's not true, right? There's a bit going on the internet. But I think this, Trov, if you go on a cruise ship now...
It's a hoax, mate. It's a hoax. There's 2 reasons why it's a hoax. It's okay. The biggest thing is, if it was real, a cruise ship's perfect environment for it to happen on. You don't have to come back, and you stay there until no one has the virus, right? Until not one person. It's the perfect quarantine machine for a global virus, right? Isn't it?
Oh, sure.
And I don't understand why they were so stupid to say, we're pulling in now and we're releasing it, and now they're saying it's here. I just saw just then. World Health Organization, your breaking news. It was just it was literally an alarm going off. It was a TikTok post with an alarm going off. Breaking news: this virus has hit, and it's like, what? And also, like, there's no real people on that ship. That ship's not a real thing because there's no real social. People have looked right into it. They're trying to find other voices. There's only two voices that they found: the guy that was crying and the other guy that's trying to say everything's cool.
Really?
And yeah, no, it's all very.
So the whole cruise ship,
I haven't looked into it a lot.
Wow, I love that. I'm loving this.
The whole thing is a psyop. I mean, I think we're just in a stage where I was listening to Tim Dillon, and I've just discovered him as a podcast that I'm going to listen to a lot because he's great. He's so good. He's just saying, you know what? We don't believe anything anymore. No one I know believes anything. You know what they're saying? Project Bluebeam. Everyone's talking about Project Bluebeam. Oh, the aliens are coming. Oh, the aliens coming, are they? Do you believe it? Does anyone believe it? Even if it is real, I still don't believe it. Like, the way what they're saying about it is not real. You don't believe anything they're saying. The disclosure. Oh, they've just said the big disclosure. That's actually happened. Do you know that's happened? That I'm genuinely asking you. Did you know that's happened?
Yes.
So
I've
they've
got
done
some
this
notes on that, actually.
Big disclosure. Everyone's just saying, what is it? It's not big. It's just more, it's all junk. And it's like it's designed to make you trust them less. And Tim Dillon's going, I'm just listening to this guy, Stephen Greer. He's saying, oh, Project Bluebeam. Oh, it's to unite the world against the aliens. Oh, yeah, everyone's going to be united against the aliens. Are they, though? Are they? Is that really what's going to happen? Or do people just go, I don't care anymore. It's all too much. System overload, no believe, I'm not buying into it anymore. So it's not that he's onto something. He's bang on. They've just overdone it. And so it's become a farce. And so whilst you're kind of watching it, you're watching it without investing the anxiety in it, you know, and this thing called mass formation, right, that I've been looking into lately, that's what, you know, speaking of COVID, that's what they did with COVID, and it's what totalitarian states do. You've got to have the fanatical people going, this is what we're doing. People that'll sign up to the secret police, people that'll dob their children in, you know, like, you know, in Eastern Europe where the mothers would put the noose around their son's neck and then proudly accept a reward for bravery for dobbing in their kid, right? That's what... It's the same mentality, though, that was happening in COVID, that whole idea, oh, you people without the vaccine can't be taking up hospital spaces and they need to die. You know, that it's this thing called mass formation, and it won't happen. Well, according to Tim Dillon, and he's taking the point to the hilt, but I think he's onto something. I think he's right onto something, that it's just too much now. So it's not going to cause this sort of... It's not going to cause the same response because no one is buying it anymore.
Well, it's all grainy footage, right? So here's, in case you don't know what was released, right? It was a package of docs, right? And there was Apollo mission transcripts and images, right? So previously classified transcripts from astronauts aboard the Apollo 11, Apollo 12, and Apollo 17 moon landing missions, including descriptions of unidentified flashes of light on the lunar surface, 3 dots in a triangular formation in the lunar sky. There was military encounter reports and eyewitness testimonies. There was historical documents, records dating back to the 1940s. Visual evidence, grainy infrared footage and photographs showing unidentified objects, and internal government analysis documents containing internal discussions analysing whether UAPs represent national security threats or have other explanations. Now, I asked my new friend Venice AI. What was the least nothing burgery of the of everything, right?
Moon stuff.
Yeah, no, actually, Venice said the Orbs launching Orbs event observed by federal employees in Western US in 2023. This isn't just light in the sky; it's a description. It's a description of complex, seemingly intelligent behavior that suggests technology far beyond known capabilities. The second one was the report from the US military in Syria in 2024. A mishappen and uneven ball of white light. Now, our friend Richie would love that. Could be a bit of little plasma ball coming down. And then there was a football-shaped object near Japan, and that was interesting. When you have trained military personnel in a strategic region documenting an object with specific unusual characteristics. Now, if you're a fan of the show and you go as far down the rabbit holes as us, you would probably sympathise with my synopsis of this, that it's a very carefully curated bunch of nothingness.
It didn't even spark my curiosity, to be honest with you.
It is. It's
I'm
such
not even
a nothing
curious
burger.
about it.
And it's
Except
funny.
the moon stuff is interesting from the point of view of why. Why are they making such a kind of... Because that's a pretty wild claim. It's not a very commonly... I mean, I've heard it, and I think it is one of the most interesting claims that basically, why did we stop going to the moon? Because we were told not to come back. And I'm of the school of thought that we did get to the moon on a number of occasions, but I'm also of the school of thought that the whole narrative is absolutely riddled with lies, and that it was shot. The footage that you see was not from the moon. That was in a studio. That's just my view, whatever. But to bring it up is kind of makes you think they're trying to jangle the blue beam, because if there were aliens on the moon, then that highlights a potential security threat, doesn't it? It kind of it plays into the kind of War of the Worlds narrative anyway. It's kind of like it's saying this is not just here. It's a wild claim. It's a claim that, I don't know, that somehow plays into a narrative.
So Project Bluebeam, for those people who haven't been as far down the rabbit holes as us, is a project whereby the military, deep state, whoever elites, whoever you want to, the cabal, basically stage an alien invasion with technology that they already have to make it look like extraterrestrials are invading or attacking the Earth. To basically do something else, it's
been around for a long time. They've been saying that Project Bluebeam was being talked about in the 1970s, as far back as the 1970s, as being a psyop. So people were predicting it to be something that the government was going to do, was being talked about as an option. One of the great propagators of the narrative is Dr. Stephen Greer, who I have very mixed feelings about, but I think he's definitely onto a few things. He releases this, what's it called? CE5 for close.
CE5.
CE5
He's got an app
app.
for that. If you want to see a UFO, you get his app, right? It's for
And
a
people
small
have
price.
reported back that if you listen in a group situation to these particular frequencies, and you get into a meditative state with a bunch of 20 people out in a field, you're likely to see something. Now, I don't know, maybe not likely to see something, but a lot of people have reported doing that. And I've heard it from a whole bunch of different sources. So he's onto something. He's definitely onto something, but he paints himself as this sort of wonderful saviour, that he's the one who's bringing this whole disclosure and cutting through all the red tape. And I think he's yes, I think you've got to question a lot of what he says. I think some of what he says seems to be okay, but it's this whole subject is so riddled with people who are pushing different narratives, and then this thing that I've heard coming back since then, which is the Tucker Carlson view of there's stuff that I don't even tell my wife. Now, I think that's a psyop, and I think Tucker Carlson's in on that. I think he might believe it, but he's been maybe it's that he's been fed that to say that, because that's what they definitely want you to believe. There's a really interesting study that's been done that if you check out what people have experienced in the public realm with UFOs, almost all of it seems in the positive area, and then you talk about how does that narrative change when it is seen through the government disclosure lens, and it's always a negative thing. It's this demonic sort of element that comes into it. Now, I don't know. I definitely think that aren't we at a stage where the idea that we trust the government with this disclosure is just, to me, not only questionable but bonkers. It's if someone said, "Oh no, I think that's a good," they've said they're going to bring it out and they probably will. I'd say, well, where's your precedent for them ever doing anything for the benefit of the people? We always find out what they were doing it for was for some very nefarious purpose.
So on this, I read 5 things, right, that the disclosure documents include, and I think the cherry on the top and the most important one is the internal government analysis, right? So it's documents containing internal discussions analysing whether UAPs represent national security threats or have other explanations. And I think that's deliberately put in there so people think that the government don't really know either. So it's a bit of a mystery to all of us. And I would be least surprised if it turns out, and we may never know this, that we actually have some sort of weird relationship with these ETs, interdimensional beings in these, underground military bases. I think that's the most likely scenario. And by releasing documents, where the government's like, oh my God, I don't know what it is. Like, do you think it's a threat, or what do we think this stuff is? Like, that's, to me, just screams, this is such a nothing burger, such a psyop. It's so disappointing. But also, I think the timing is really important. Because
I really don't think you should be disappointed, though. I mean, it's just what it was always going to be.
Well,
They were all saying this. People like.
So Tim, just let me go for a sec. So Tim Burchett, right? He's a congressman in the US. He's like the main guy when it comes to UFO disclosure. And he said that he's been told some really gnarly stuff that, again, the public would literally, the public sentiment around the world would literally unravel. And he said, I don't know exactly what's going to come out in this. And this was only a week ago on a podcast, right?
This is a dangerous narrative, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Who said this?
Tim Burchett
I think I heard
is a
that.
congressman, and he's part of the UAP Disclosure Committee. And he's one of the blokes with Anna Paulina Luna that go into these SCIF meetings, these classified briefings, and get all this information on what they do know. And he's frustrated because it's so compartmentalized that they can't get a straight answer. They can't ever get the full picture. But his point, which I think is incredibly valid, is he goes, look, definitely there is the whole alien thing, right? That is a topic. But what I'm most concerned about is where is the budget coming from for these huge facilities that we apparently have access to and are reverse engineering craft. Where is the money coming from? And also, is this and how much right? How much are we spending on these programs? And is it actually a better, opportunity to spend it on schools, healthcare, police, whatever? So he's coming from it from a, concerned uncle kind of perspective, rather than I really want to know what's going on with these little green men type.
I liked him. I liked his vibe too. He's an older fella.
Yeah, but he's also saying, and along with so many other people, that it's the actual truth of who these interdimensional beings truly are is scary, and people would absolutely lose their minds. But what they do, Trov, according to Bob Lazar, is in these compartmentalized, departments of these dark government, however it works, is they will deliberately give out information, like gnarly information, to the different groups and see what ends up on the internet later to know where the leaks are coming from, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if the Tucker thing, the Tim Burchett thing, they've all been fed slightly different versions of some horrific truth about, whatever, and they're just waiting to see what essentially surfaces. Because
Tucker was talking to a fella and they both agreed. So they'd both been fed a similar narrative, because they're having a conversation, Tucker, with another news kind of guy who I didn't know. And they're both saying that there's elements that they wouldn't even share with their wife or their children. And they're both saying that. They're both saying that. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you've been fed that line. You've been fed something dark by someone you trust, so they believe it. I'm not saying, I don't think Tucker's very good at lying, and I don't think he's naturally a liar. I think he's saying, I've heard something, I'm not going to share it here, but it's something I don't even share with my wife because it's so dark. That is a great little snapshot. And it immediately makes me think, well, that's probably not got truth in it, because I think it's a spin. So I don't know, though. I don't know. But I do know not to trust things like that. I know that there's something about that I don't want to trust. Also, I think that the narrative that the people just can't handle it, I don't agree with it. I think if you say a narrative that is a wild narrative, you don't release it to the people wholly. You release it in kind of a very well put together documentary that not that many people will end up seeing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't release. At no time in the history of man has any information been released to the general public in a way that everyone's digested it and gone, oh, did you hear what they said? Because no one's going to believe it. No, who's trustworthy enough? If, on the other hand, this information is released, which it already kind of has been through, there's a number of documentaries that have got probably, a reasonably high percentage of very factual information about what's happening behind the scenes. So there is a lot of information out there. I mean, I would just love to know what he's talking about I'd love to know what that particular guy or what all of them are talking about when they say, I've got this information that no one can handle. Because I know it won't be something that I won't be able to handle, because I'm not going to immediately go, oh, that's what it is. Oh, that's scary. I'm not going to...
What do you think, if you had to guess, what do you think they are talking about?
I think they're just talking about demons.
Yeah, I think...
But loosh as well. I think it's to do with loosh and demons. So loosh is a thing. So if you guys don't know what loosh is, it's just the substance. So the Chinese call it qi. It's like a substance of energy, an energy field that humans emit, that that other beings feed on?
Well, I actually
that angels and demons feed on them.
I would disagree that it's the same as chi. I think chi is kind of, if there's good vibrations and bad vibrations, I would say, you know, chi, meditation, all that stuff is good. Is the good juice, and it's the negative. It's the fear and it's the anxiety. And I mean,
I've heard it was both.
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
I mean, who knows? But there's a
But
very
yeah, no, that's true. I shouldn't try to confuse it. I just heard it being compared to chi, and that was an analogy that helped me get my head around it. But yes, it's not the same as chi, but it's an energy substance that is being fed on by that you release. And a lot of people do talk about it in the negative. So we release from hatred, fear, loathing, you know, low vibrational stuff. That wars are wonderful for producing lots of loosh.
Well, also football events. So that anxiety and that cheering. So they are allegedly big harvesting sort of centres. And people go as far as to say that certain things have been designed in a certain way, like stadiums and movie theatres and coliseums and whatnot, over the years to be more efficient in harvesting loosh energy. But
I'm just opening my mind up to it because my latest, this girl, Dr. Heather Lynn, who I think is wonderful. I think she's wonderful, and she. It's not that she believes in it; she thinks that it's instrumental to religious history. So, in other words, you know, she says things like the reason why did they sacrifice people on the cross? Why was crucifixion a thing? Well, hanging takes a very short time. Crucifixion, 6 hours, huge amounts of spectators, lots of loosh. And so she's saying that the priest class understood this, and there's lots of documents to support it.
I think it's more about the fact that we're just not in control of our own sort of globe, our own planet, essentially. I think the truth is that they are, like, we are beholden to them. We are maybe even as dark as being food source for them.
Yes, I think that's...
And I think that's the truth. And I think that's just like something that they cannot... That I think 100% the population could not actually handle. That we are actually the sheep in the field. We are not the masters of our own, essentially, destiny. But I do also think that if we broke this, you know, this loop of, fighting and arguing against each other. And I think, like, if you're talking about AI algorithms being part of the evilness, you know, the division on the internet, just go on X for 5 minutes or any of the other platforms, really. And the stuff that gets pushed the most is the most divisive, the most comments, the most rage bait. And I think if we all stepped back from that, literally the matrix... So part of the idea about this loosh thing is our energy is actually what's keeping the matrix and the program running. So if we were to awaken, right, which I'm not really in that whole, percentage of the population awakening, all that stuff. I'm not sure about all that. But I do think the world would be an incredibly different place. We look at our leaders for change and to stick it to the man. But I think if we just on the street level, and I think we're doing a reasonable job, but just, doing
a reasonable job of what?
Just if you look at, you have interactions in this local community. I think Katoomba is a bit of a strange old place, to be honest. But, I think if we have reactions in the community, we do actually have an element of respect and care. And if we interact with people for more than 5 minutes, we would probably find common ground and help each other, even though we might have massively differing beliefs on certain things, and that's fine, right? And I think if we, if we cared for each other, loved each other, stuck to the speed limits, all that sort of stuff, which I don't do, I'll put my hand up. But what I'm saying is, would you need police? Would you need arbitrators? Would you need judges? Would you need lawyers? Would you need the system, right? Like, yes, we need to collaborate to get at food and stuff like that. Or do we even need that, right? There was some study about if every city had a block of land-sized garden, it would actually sustain a city, right, and have some chickens, some, right? So if we all actually truly cared about each other, the system would then literally fail. But
Trust systems work really well until there's just always exceptions to the rule. You know that put your money in here, take the veggies. They work until someone just comes and takes the lot. So it just takes one person, and unfortunately, there are those people. But we absolutely shouldn't need laws and policing, and I don't believe we should anyway. But it's
So I think if we were all in touch with our essence, with consciousness really closely, and look, I'm not perfect, I'm not preaching, I'm like a psychomaniac, right? But if we were all really deeply in touch with our consciousness essence, we would feel fairness. We would feel, am I taking advantage of this person?
We wouldn't be able to go to war.
Yeah, all that stuff would just
not be
fall
possible.
away. And I think, if we're talking about us not being in control of our own planet, and with the help of AI, so a lot of people argue that AI is an extension of this demonic force from outside another dimension. We're getting deep pretty quickly here, but I think there could be something to that, and what it's bringing across. And look at. I was going to do a little section on the AI infrastructure that's being built in Australia right now, because they're not announcing anything. They're not like Trump, where they're like, oh, we're going to do this and it's great because of vaccines and curing cancer, whatever. They're just quietly grinding. So Western Sydney, Melbourne's West, South Australia, Tasmania, Kimberley. They're also looking at trying to do data centers for. It obviously uses so much power, right? So they're looking
How
at
many data centers? Have you got a number?
There's like 15 or 20.
You're kidding. That aren't built yet but are going ahead?
That are in the works. One of the biggest ones is in WA, which is a estimated $30 billion project, right? Which for Australia is massive. So
it's crazy because I've always thought I've been listening to all the terrible things about the data center because they're bad places, and I've been listening to it all from the US narrative. But then there must be lots happening in Europe. There must be ones in the UK.
Definitely, Europe and USA are horny for it, and they're advertising it. But the funny thing about Australia is they're just not coming right out and sort of flashing it in your face, because I think people would be asking questions. Why? What is so important about spending $30 billion? So across these projects, let's just say it's $200 billion worth of infrastructure that they're now putting into data centers, right? And just think about this. Think about the access that you and I, as a punter, have access to in terms of AI. Yeah, we use chatbots, but I mean, has that really improved our lives that much at all? Okay, so there's you go to a website and there might be a little AI chatbot in the corner. Oh, sorry, we're not here. Leave us your details. Someone will get back to you, whatever. So,
do you know what?
The point I'm making here, right, is this is infrastructure for surveillance,
the control
grid. That's what they need the infrastructure
for. Which
for.
is the third temple, according to Dr. Heather Lynn.
Yeah, well, there you go.
We've got to build the third temple, and she's saying the third temple is the control grid.
Another thing I wanted to talk about tying into this is Ford Motor Company have put these crazy patents into the patent office. What it is it's technology that sits inside your car, right? That reads your pupils, reads your heart rate, your patterns, and if it thinks that you're
bonkers.
Yeah, if it thinks that you're too amped up to drive your vehicle, it won't let you start it, or it will disable some functions. It also has the ability to take a facial scan and make sure you don't have, this is serious, right? This is actually what they've filed. A facial scan. So if you have a warrant for your arrest, the car won't start, right? So cars, and look, I've been banging on about Tesla for a while, right? About, eventually this is the reason why the governments are all so horny on EVs. It's not about, and everyone ignores now, you can't talk about how bad the batteries are or whatever, but it will be a futuristic thing where you can't go where the government doesn't want you to go, because you don't have full control over your own vehicles. Trov, you can't buy a Tesla anymore. You can only rent it, right? And this is what's happening with things like Ford. You can't buy and own your own Tesla. And with these software packages, where we're going in the future, even though the car isn't EV, they have subscription-based software, right, that they own. So whilst you might buy the car and make repayments, they actually essentially have the license for the tech inside the car.
I'm never going to own one. I can tell you now.
It's absolutely
it's a test
crazy.
Though.
Let me just finish my loop here. So what I'm talking about with these AI infrastructure, these data centers, it's infrastructure for stuff like that. It's to be able to crunch data on the population in real time, to make decisions on what we're doing and to potentially forecast reactions and all that type of stuff. I don't think that the punter out of this let's say there's $200 million worth of data centers out there. I actually don't think that the punter is actually going to benefit in terms of a surveillance state. Obviously it's not for us at all, but I don't think in terms of what's being drip fed to us, right, we're just not going to actually benefit in our little lives by having all these data centers everywhere. So
we're going to do the opposite of benefit. It is a control grid. There's no question that that's what it is, and the fact that no one's even giving an alternative to it. So the fact that there's not. It shows that our wits are dimmed. Our wits have been dimmed.
Maybe like in terms of medical intervention and medicine and simulating, drug trials and things, I can see some benefit there.
Good point. There are benefits that is one of them, but it doesn't explain the absolute hugeness of what's going on in terms of the amount of infrastructure globally that's just bonkers. It's a huge amount, and it is about a control grid. And the reason why that test of the car thing is so extreme, because you think about it, they had the example of the plane that it thought it was flying 90 degrees vertical and wanted to go to 90 degrees horizontal, but it was actually horizontal, and then so it went straight down.
The Boeing thing.
And the guy managed to just save it. And if he hadn't have saved it, there wouldn't have been a court case. There was only a court case because he saved the lives of everyone. The pilot overrode the system, which was designed not to be overridden by a human. It was designed to make, because it makes better decisions than a human. Humans get too emotional, etc. And there is some evidence to that. But we live in a human world, and we've got to be able to override computers. And this was an example of how that was very clearly the case. And the idea that he wasn't supposed to be override the computer is bonkers in an emergency situation, because he's the pilot of the plane, and otherwise, what's the point? And there must have been cases where the plane went down and they went, oh, well, maybe the pilot made a mistake when it could have easily been, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he won that court case, and it's just one example of how. So what this thing's saying is, if I own my own car, just think of that. Think about it. My car can make a decision that I'm not fit to drive by analysing my behaviour and making decisions that are against me. So it's working it's my enemy. My car is my enemy. The idea that there is potentially that my car can work against me instead of for me. It's my servant. It is beneath me in every way, and I will never, ever purchase a vehicle or any piece of infrastructure. Like, imagine if my phone was my boss and my phone could do things to me that I didn't agree with. Well, what on earth is that?
Well, the ship sailed. I mean, it already does, right? It already does that. Show me an app that you don't need to sign into to use nowadays.
Well, so I have been psyoped, but it's not quite the same thing. It can't shut down on me halfway through a trip like a car could, and leave you stranded in the wilderness potentially. I mean, potentially really bad things. And the point is, it's a computer and it's not using any objective measurement. It's so judge, jury, executioner, which is straight out of Judge Dredd, science fiction,
Minority Report.
It's straight out of that, and I do think that because that technology isn't there in the cars yet, is it?
No, these are patents. So
although we
could
do
be
know
a decade away
we do
or
know
5
that
years away.
they do know how to crash a car, remote control. They know how to do that. We've heard enough stories about that.
Furthermore, on the Ford patents, one of which is a kind of a listening device that can be used for targeting ads, right? So it actually listens to your conversations the same way. I mean, we sort of get upset with this, but your phone's sitting in the car and it's probably listening to all your conversations anyway. But so it's a crazy, and this is the thing, right? Time and time again, we discuss going to dinners and outings with our fellow friends who aren't as conspiratorial as us. And, it's frustrating to say, look, guys, the infrastructure is already being built. It's appearing now. And tell me another, just give me one, Mr. Normie, with your hat on. Give me one good reason why we would need to invest all of this money into AI for the benefit of human beings. Like there's nothing really great. And Tim Dillon, getting back to Tim Dillon, he had a funny skit on his last show. I think we talked about this last show as well. But basically, he was making the point of what actually good things has AI done for the punter even now. Like, I'm amazed with ChatGPT, and it saves me heaps of time with certain things. But what it gives, man, it takes away. And I honestly believe that it's like, I'm ready to boycott ChatGPT. Like, it has got me into some serious trouble with some serious things. And I've
yelled at it. Oh, man. Last week, I yelled at. I'm yelling at ChatGPT, and then I'm yelling at my daughter because she's like, it fires me up so much, and it pushes my buttons because of its impersonation. It's impersonating human being, and it's not a human being. So it's like, I'm just kind of going, go away. Either give me a simple answer or just go away and don't. It just drives me nuts. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not. I've got a real authenticity thing. That's all I want, is something that's real.
Yeah.
And it's not real. It's just not real.
What gets me, and this is my main complaint, is its certainty around aspects that it is absolutely not certain about. And I often prompt it and say, if you don't completely know the answer to this, please say so.
The comedian does that so well.
Yeah, and it goes, no, totally understand. No, I get where you're coming from, 100%. No, definitely. And then you go, I actually know for a fact that information is completely wrong. And I might base a business decision around what you've just said in that and so 3 or 4 times it's really, really annoyed me and cost me real money in a real world scenario, right? And so I've come back to it and I said, like, shame on me for trusting a random chatbot on the internet, right? But at the same time, your level of certainty around that was really, really compelling, right? So, if and again, and now I can't even, for, like I said a couple of shows ago, specific calculations that saves you time on a calculator or mathematical problems or coding, great, right? But anything vibe, themed, creative,
totally,
just absolutely shove it up your bum. It is, and I would argue that I just have a sneaking suspicion that it's slowly being programmed to be dumber. Like, that's honestly, and I said to it the other day, I'm like, I feel like they've changed your coding to be more sympathetic and a shoulder to cry on, and lessened and dialed down the percentage of accuracy.
You don't have to though. If you make it more sympathetic, you're dialing down the accuracy automatically. You can't do one without the other.
Well, but if you're asking, it depends. So
I just heard someone say that at a very high level. That they said that by making it more sympathetic with you, what it sacrifices is truth.
Yeah, accuracy, exactly. It's just wild.
So it's and I don't care about the sympathy at all. I don't care about it being like it was just. It just kept talking to me before I'd finished asking the question. And I said, no, be quiet. I haven't finished asking the question. And it wasn't stopping. And it just kept, and then it was just jammed. And it was just like it was, what do you call it? Just malfunctioning in a way to infuriate me. Do you know what I mean? And I was just going, I can't deal with this. Why am I? And I was just trying to just crash it. Just trying to swipe it off, just turn it off. And I couldn't even do that because it was frozen. The screen was frozen, and it was just talking at me through my speaker. So I just turned the speaker off, and it made me more angry because I'm pretty good with anger these days. I've worked a lot on anger, folks, over the years, and it's hard to get me into that sort of rage. And I was just in a rage with a computer bot. It's ridiculous, but it just shows me that I do not like it. I do not like it because what it is ugly and stupid. I don't like it at all. Having said that, there are forms of AI that I'm sure I will find not quite so frustrating, and there are forms of AI that I've heard. I think when you program it to really look at, like I've used it as a research tool for, especially in the esoteric realm, and it's been fantastic, like really good. You say, looking through this lens and referencing people and just looking at the top esoteric minds. And my God, because what you're talking about is a pool of literature that just includes incredibly intelligent writers. Do you know what I mean? So some of the best writing ever. And then if they're just using that as their database, and then they can search through that and find it. I'm going to do more of that because there are wonderful things that can be done as a research tool. There's no question of that. But if it has to do with anything that has an element of intuition in it, do not use it. That's what, and if I'm using it for something that involves even the most minuscule bit of intuition, then me. So, like a present to give someone, or something.
Oh, look, I don't mind that. What do I get? I'm going to a kid's, a boy's 10th birthday party, and you go, what's trending? What am I going to be a hero for? I don't mind stuff like that. But
okay. I suppose that's all right too. That's just giving you some ideas. Nothing particularly wrong with that. Yeah, that wasn't particularly great example.
Speaking of AI, right, and nefarious things happening in the world of AI. So Meta, our mate Mark Zuckerberg, is facing quite a substantial lawsuit, right? So the lawsuit filed by plaintiffs Gina Bartone and Matteo Canu, I don't know, in March 2026 alleges that Meta and its partner Luxottica violated federal and state privacy laws by failing to disclose that the footage captured by the glasses was being sent to human contractors overseas for review. According to the lawsuit, these contractors in Nairobi, Kenya, were manually viewing and labeling users' private audio-visual data to train Meta's AI models. So, particularly concerning allegations include reports that these human viewers saw highly sensitive content, including people undressing, engaging in sexual activities, and other intimate moments within their own homes. The lawsuit claims that the glasses sometimes captured audio and video even when users didn't intend to record. And this sensitive material was then transmitted overseas to contractors. Meta had marketed the glasses with privacy-focused slogans like "designed for privacy, controlled by you," and "you're in control of your data and content," which the lawsuit argues was misleading given the undisclosed human review pipeline. So basically, if you were early to the party because you like your tech and you bought the Meta frames, right? Chances are there was some dudes sitting in a call center environment in Nairobi just seeing the world through your eyes.
All my nephews, because my grandmother, my stepmother, gave them to all the mate, and they're boys they've seen some stuff.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about running out and getting those, I think they're a collab with Ray-Ban. I think they're a Ray-Ban collab. They've got a little camera and they can put things in the screen. It's supposed to be the next wearable tech. So let's. Is wearable tech really where we should be going? And it's so hilarious. So
who spilled the beans?
Workers at Meta.
Workers at Meta spilled the beans.
Yep. And so what the irony of all this, right? So Mark Zuckerberg was the main campaigner to get TikTok removed because of the privacy implications, because China is spying on you. If you like videos of cats farting or, little beagles, eating ice cream, right? We don't want China to know that, right? We've got huge issues with privacy. And how many times has Meta got egg on their face? The Cambridge Analytica scandal, now people literally watching what you're watching through your glasses. It is laughable. That whole Meta thing was just absolutely an absolute joke. And if you don't think, right, that the world is controlled by unelected officials, look at what happened, right? So TikTok ByteDance decided to sell the US version of TikTok to guess who?
The Israelis.
Larry Ellison, right? Oracle now own TikTok USA, just hoovering up that data, loving the data, right? And actually,
it's just it is the moustache twirling stuff. It's like we can't have the Chinese owning it, so who will we get? We'll get the Israelis to own it instead.
That's crazy.
But
at least they're a friendly state.
But the fact that no one just said it like that, like it took ages for that fact to be like, because I only heard it quite recently, and this happened a long time ago.
I think it was about 6-12 months, something like that. Yeah.
I remember it was being shut down. It was being shut down, and then suddenly it didn't get shut down because it switched ownership, and the deals were done behind closed doors, and then suddenly TikTok was still the same, but it seemed to have different sympathies. And it's wild. It's wild, this world. It's so, because even though no one trusts the powers that be, it's like they're letting them do whatever they want at the same time. So we're at that stage where it's like, yeah, I don't trust them, but yeah, what do you do? It's that's where we're at. No, I don't trust them. No, I think they're absolutely full of rubbish. But hey, I mean, they're still pulling the strings. It's a really chaotic situation at the moment, isn't it?
All right, we're going to hear from our sponsors and we will be back after this.
Yeah, so Radio Blue Mountains, 89.1. It's Stranger Than Fiction. Now, we've reached a new height, Stranger Than Fiction, the show, right? So we're on Spotify, okay? So we've got 4 shows up there for you.
Go check it out,
on
folks.
Spotify, yep. And we've also got our own...
Don't be shy.
Our own YouTube channel, okay? So there's the YouTube Stranger Than Fiction. Go check that one out. I think it's at Stranger Than Fiction 891. There's our shorts, there's our Vox Pops, and there's also there's a podcast on there. And for some reason, they also automatically added as videos, right? Did you check that out, Trov? Anyway,
no, not yet.
So that's there.
I'll have something on Facebook by the end of the decade too.
Yeah, for your listening
Definitely
pleasure.
Before 2030, I'll have something on Facebook.
Yeah, a bit of facey action.
Keep looking out for that.
Now, what's interesting about me uploading all of our content on the internet, it didn't come with zero concerns. So what I did over 6 days, I released our 3 most popular Vox Pops as shorts. The first one did about 700 views. The other one did about 800. And then I thought, the old moon landing, the old moonlander, because that was popular on TikTok. I think we're at 20,000 views.
Yeah,
right?
mate. Yeah, mate.
Has got one view in like 4 days. So I think YouTube has kind of done a little bit of AI analysis on us and thought maybe these aren't the kind of guys that we want to be promoting in the algorithm. So it's no surprise, really. It's probably a feather in our cap. So if you're out there, give us a follow, give us a subscription, a subscribe, hit the sub,
like and subscribe.
Yeah, and so when we move into our new studio, so Radio Blue Mountains, another thing that might happen by 2030 is our new studio across the hallway. Now it's a beautiful looking space.
Oh, mate.
So
6 years.
Yeah. So Trov and I are going to get some cameras in there, and we're going to do shorts of us in the studs as just to see if that gets us a little bit of traction, because it's not easy to get out there as a small community radio show on the on the 8 till 10 p.m.s on the Sundays. Everyone's just tucked up, right? It's like, I think people have already had their cups of tea. They've already probably had a few bickies, right? So anyway, if you can follow us on some of the digital platforms, it'd be most appreciated, because so far on Spotify we've had 2 plays, right? We've got 1 play on one episode, 1 play on the other, for pretty much 0 watch time. So people have logged on, had a listen, and then quickly found an alternative thing to listen to. But I remain positive, right? So my goal, right, is to get 20 regular listeners and streamers. That's all I want, Then we know that you're picking up what we're sort of putting down here now. Speaking of Larry Ellison, right, there's this big deal going on. I can't remember. I think it's Netflix, it's Paramount buying Disney or vice versa. There's 3 main big players in the space. I forgot to print this information out before I came. This must be sitting on my printer at home. And so Larry Ellison essentially is buying up the same guy that owns TikTok, the same guy that owns Oracle, which is where all our phone data essentially kind of ends up. He's also now buying these, these sort of streaming services and film studios, right? Now, I've always been curious, and I'm not the first person to ponder on this, whether some of the stuff that starts arriving in our movie theaters and our streaming platforms are really just sort of nudging us to say, I think what's happening is, I used to think maybe they're trying to warn us, or like people have channeled good information like the Matrix to kind of wake us up. I actually don't think that. I think it's more so show them a little bit about what's about to happen, and so they're just not surprised. They can continue paying their taxes and living their lives when we announce this weird and wonderful stuff. It's not that if we have a reference point for the information. So let's just pretend for one moment that the only information on aliens and UFOs were literally little encounters that got reported on the news. There was no, films about it or movies. And then now this UFO disclosure came out. Maybe we would lose our minds. But because we've been conditioned so well over the years, maybe that's why we're just not so bothered about what's happening. And I've said this 1,000 times. A lot of film and TV shows are now about interdimensional stuff going on, even into the Spider-Verse, right? And everyone's shifting timelines in these, and even Marvel, man. Marvel are so all over this, Doctor Strange with his different time zones and his different, dimensions and all that kind of stuff. So I had a chat with my mate Venice AI. And I said, have a little scan, right? I've got a theory that they're sort of nudging us to sort of not necessarily tell us what's coming, but to mentally prepare us via metaphor. And AI, my mate Venice AI came up with this. It said, interesting movie coming up by Steven Spielberg. It's called Disclosure Day, scheduled for release June 12, 2026. Appears to be perfectly timed to capitalize on the potentially normalize this narrative shift. The film explores humanity confronting proof that we're not alone. So that's coming up. But I said, yeah, I get that. Like that, the ship sailed on that one. But what else? What other themes? Right? Let's try and front run what the government are trying to tell us.
Doctor Strange is a really good example because that goes into very esoteric stuff, and you've got to remember that the whole of the Marvel universe, no matter how much it's dumbed down, sometimes it's not. And I think Doctor Strange was an example. It's not dumbing it down; it gets very esoteric. There are parts, but it's a superhero is based on the god myths, right? So it's really, and sometimes very explicitly, like Thor is one of the dudes, right, who is a god, but Hercules and all these Greek god myths, that's where all of the superheroes came from. The people that were writing them for the comic books in the 50s, or all of them, were just taking those myths, the god myths, and turning them into a modern day godlike creature that was, as we know now, as superhero. The penny didn't really drop for me until someone pointed it out to me on one of the podcasts I was listening to the other day, that's exactly what it is. And so all this stuff, so it's foundationally, there's a lot of really good material, and then sometimes they take the ball and they run with it to a pretty not so interesting place. And I can really love superhero stuff, and I can also think it's about as bad as anything gets. That's where I am with superhero. I definitely don't eat it all up. There are certain type. Jessica Jones I particularly like. That's a bit of a guilty pleasure. She's just got a few, but she's a bit of an alcoholic, basically.
So my mate David Icke references a movie called Monsters, Inc., right? And in this movie, right, monsters go through these portals into children's bedrooms. They scare them to charge their batteries, and then they come back into their dimension or their land, if you will. And the screams of the children that are the sustenance that power their realm. I mean,
wow.
How crazy is that? But so Venice AI said, based on current, so this is getting back to what if we were trying to front run what the government are trying to prepare us for. What's a brand new kind of theme that they might be trying to sort of nudge us to get our little sort of punter heads around? Based on current media trends and what's emerging in entertainment, there's a fascinating theme that's becoming increasingly prevalent. The concept of reality simulation and consciousness uploading as a form of digital immortality. This theme goes beyond traditional VR or AI stories, as it's exploring the idea that our reality itself might be a simulation, and that human consciousness can be transferred between different layers of reality. We're seeing this in recent films and series where characters discover they're living in simulated worlds and find ways to upload their consciousness to other servers or dimensions of experience.
Do we get examples of the shows here?
No, but I watched a really, really good one. What was the name of the show? It was a cartoon. Very, very good, very highly rated. And that was exactly what happened. They were uploading themselves. It's on the tip of my tongue. Can't remember. But yeah, so that's what my mate Venice AI and says this aligns with real-world developments in brain computing interfaces and tech billionaires openly pursuing mind uploading as a form of immortality. The entertainment seems to be normalizing what would otherwise be a deeply unsettling concept. Our consciousness might be separable from our biological bodies and transferable to other realms of existence.
So what about CERN, mate? I've been hearing a lot of murmurs and whispers about CERN. I mean,
what are you hearing? What's on the?
Well, basically there's portals happening there.
Yeah,
things are coming through those portals.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about people alleging that ChatGPT have portals around the world who are able to summon interdimensional beings. So nothing would really surprise me in that realm. But I do think that, film and TV, and it's so interesting. Like, there was an interview with. So the part of this, shout out to Brendo in his book. He talks about the music industry and honestly, dude, the amazing overlap with children of high-ranking military officials becoming pop superstars out of nowhere, right? And we talked about Laurel Canyon, The Doors, and all that sort of overlap. Why?
Why?
Well, I mean, so in the case of Laurel Canyon, they wanted to co-opt, and this goes into Chaos. The what's the book Chaos about? The dude who persuaded people to kill other people. What was it? Charles Manson, right? So it was the same psyop. So what it was this anti-establishment movement, right? That sort of it made the whole idea of Laurel Canyon and the Charles Manson thing was to make the people who were protesting against the Vietnam War seem like crazed lunatic hippies. Hippies were peace-loving, flower-wearing, awesome, everything is love and good, until they started to form cults and murder people, right? And it's the same as the music, right? And the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
I get that.
They brought that in to completely co-opt the thing. And there's this other conspiracy theory, right, that this fella talks about in his book, which is fascinating. That NWA, that scene was to help, literally, dude. There's so much evidence to suggest that the whole gangster rap scene was deliberately promoted,
created.
Promoted to keep jails full.
Wow.
Because everybody wants to be a gangster, yo. They're riding down with their Mac 10s in the street, you know what I mean? And the Biggie 2-pack thing, right? Shooting each other. I mean, look, what do I know? I'm a dude in a studio in Katoomba. But that, to me, look back on that from a psyop perspective. That's got some real...
It took me a while to digest this whole idea, but I did run it by old mate who is the teacher of the esoteric group here in Katoomba, and he's absolutely in line with the fact that it was the rock and roll. So yeah, part of divide and conquer, really. But filling the jails up is all part of that. But bands like NWA, not that they created themselves and they were just bands forming wild bands, but they were funded by the CIA. The CIA wanted to give them a real crack because they definitely would have stayed, especially NWA, they would have stayed very fringe and they wouldn't have gone to that next level without a bit of a nudge. You kind of know that in your bones, don't you? Because they were extreme. They were very extreme and they somehow made it into white culture. Now, how did they do that?
Well, what was interesting, and look, I'm just playing with ideas now. There's no evidence of this, but if you look at it through that lens, they were doing one of their first tours as NWA, and there was one particular state they had a song that was "F the police," right? F the police, and there was so. Essentially, they promised that they wouldn't sing it, but at the very last minute, they dropped it, right? And the stadium was full of police. They were waiting for them to drop the song. The whole concert turned into an absolute riot, fires and all the rest of it. People are getting locked up. They're all running like it was sort of like a I don't know, like a shooting or whatever. And their popularity after that just absolutely went insane. So you just wonder. I mean, what an excellent publicity stunt to be to sing a song that was banned. And
how many people were killed at that concert?
Yeah, exactly.
Were there people killed?
I'm not sure. But interestingly enough, a dude. Ian Carroll was talking about Michael Jackson. Now, Michael Jackson. Man, you could have a podcast that went forever on his life and what really happened and all the rest of it. But there's a new, I think it's a movie
biopic.
Yeah. And apparently
it's just called Michael, isn't it?
Yeah, could be.
Is that what it's called?
Could be. But anyway,
I think so.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but basically what he's saying is none of the juicy stuff was talked about at all, right? In the what really happened and who he was speaking out against and all the rest of it. But that is a fascinating story. And you talk about, where Larry Ellison's going with the visual media. I think that's just an extension of what what Hollywood music was like. Or the music scene overall back in the sort of 70s or 80s, it had to filter through these big name labels that had, influence in, and they all talk about, this book's fascinating. It's called Nobody's Dad's a Plumber, right? Which is a really funny title.
Which book?
It's the book that Brendo gave me on the street that time.
That's called Nobody's Dad's a Plumber.
Yeah.
Interesting title.
Yeah, well, he's talking about the music industry and it seems that nobody really comes from nowhere. And it's fascinating what Professor Zhang says, and also David Icke's been banging on about this for decades, about these people that rise to billionaire status have this magical Midas touch, right? Like they have the tick of approval from the CIA, and everyone down and above and around. It's not like making it in the world. And I think
wasn't Taylor Swift from a very ordinary? Oh no, not that unordinary though. They were well off, but they weren't. Well, they weren't more than that.
He also traces back bloodlines, and I'll butcher this, and I don't think it's correct, but he looks at like Katy Perry and like the Bush family, and like 10 generations above, they're actually related in a certain way.
She's a toxic creature.
Yeah, man.
She's going out with she's seeing the Prime Minister of Canada.
Serious?
She is.
My God.
What's it? The ex-Prime Minister of Canada. What's his name?
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That dude is real bad. He's like cult. He's global cult patsy number
bonkers.
1. Yeah. Justin Trudeau. Is she going
Trudeau
out with Justin Trudeau?
And Katy Perry.
Wow.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're seeing each other, aren't they?
Oh, my God.
It is Katy Perry, isn't it? Yeah, that's the one who was with Russell Brand.
Yeah, so look, it's all a big club and we certainly ain't in on it, folks. But Yeah, I just think, when it comes to, and it's a bit sort of heartbreaking. And I think what would be really interesting for us is to read this. Is it Weird Scenes in the Canyon? I can't remember the exact book, but basically it's all about
Weird Scenes in Laurel, because that's a line from a Doors song, is Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine. That's a Jim Morrison lyric. It's very interesting, and I wonder. I'd really love to know which of them have signed the, because this, folks, this idea about people signing into the Illuminati, and apparently it is a rather significant portion of actors and musicians that have contractually signed these deals with the Illuminati, which is to say, we will help you, but you will be owned by us forever. And I used to be in two minds about this, but it's, according to so many very valid sources, it's a real thing.
So this piece of paper that I thought is on my printer at home is not. It's actually the front page of my little my notes section here. So the Larry Ellison scenario is the Paramount buying Warner Brothers. So they're two of the big three. So it's Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Disney, right, are the big ones. So Paramount buying Warner Brothers would create sort of a 2/3 monopoly on. But it's not just about making pictures, making films, and making us entertained. It's also these corporations own, HBO, CNN, TBS, TNT, and CBS. So it's not only that, but and he's already said openly that he's going to make major changes, and he reckons that CNN is fake news, and he's going to change all that, right? Because he's got the American people's, truth interests at heart. So, that could be.
That's the other thing that people have been talking about a lot lately, is we're shifting from pretending that the government makes decisions. It's because of this AI revolution. It's kind of like they're starting to bring in what was the manifesto that is behind all of Palantir. They've put it out in a this is the purpose of it, and this is what, and it's basically saying you don't even know these people in power, and you think you can get them to do what you want, and we've got to stop thinking that way, Like, we've got to stop thinking that we can, and this was Tim Dillon going through this stuff. Hilarious, but he's just saying it's bonkers. And they're basically saying we've come to the end of democracy. It's not about politicians making the decisions. It's about companies like Palantir making the decisions and just going forth and doing things without even without even asking permission from people like politicians, because what do they know? They don't know. We know. We're Palantir. We know what's good for everyone. And so we're coming into this age where people are just laying out the groundwork and the infrastructure, and they're just saying, this is it. This is the new world. Here it is. And it's there before any legislation. It's exactly what Uber did. Uber did that very successfully. And, all the cabbies are up in arms, and it's like, well, how come, there's not legislation about this? Oh, because it was too fast, or legislation had to catch up, or we're given all these excuses. And what you knew was that it was just pure corruption, because that's the only way that someone can, they were saying it's a different system. So they're not competing with cabs, but what do you mean they're not competing? They're doing the same job as a cab. You're just using that was perhaps the first really big world example of private enterprise just laying out what they did, and they did it globally, and they did it very successfully. And do you know what I mean? Like it was, and now this is the new way forward, where it's everyone's doing that, and they're just going forth, and the governments all know that that's what's happening, and they're trying to kind of make it look like they're signing off on it, but it's not really like that anymore. It's a new paradigm.
Yeah, it's all that funny sort of corporate language that just doesn't really mean anything. But they're telling you what they're going to do without telling you what they're going to do. It's like the WEF. Some of their statements are like, promoting public and government collaboration to ensure, prosperity in the future and da-da-da-da-da. And what they're really doing. And I think the WEF's, if I was going to like, succinctly say what my major concern is with the WEF as a whole, is they're literally combining private interests and government interests together to slowly, and Trump is an absolute master of this, is to start to take away the small amount of decision and policy making capabilities of the actual elected officials, and that's the scariest part of what I think Trump is doing, and I think what the World Economic Forum. I mean, Larry Fink is the new chairman of the World Economic Forum, right? The richest guy, one of the rich. Well, who is also the chairman, I think, and CEO of the largest, manager of funds on the planet, which is BlackRock. So, I mean, it's all about, and I've banged on about this so many times about our Julia Inman Grant, right, our e-safety commissioner, being a member and advisor of the WEF, right? Yeah. We get sold this narrative that she's, up against the big guys and, giving it to the social media platforms. And it's a very nuanced conversation because social media platforms are doing some gnarly stuff. But at the same time, you're like, well, hang on a minute. Like, is she really fighting for the people, or is she part of a club? Like, I don't think she's going to bring the hammer on somebody that she speaks next to, and they have closed door hearings in these, these sort of working sessions, these working bees, essentially, where they both get together and literally decide. So she's talking. So our e-safety commissioner, right, who is employed by our government, right, to keep us safe on the internet, is collaborating closely about the direction of where they want to go with the social media companies themselves. Like, and I think 20 years ago that would just be a conflict of interest that the world would just not accept. You know what I mean? I just don't think that. And way past that now. Yeah, and I just wonder. Like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these, closed door, working bee sessions and go, what are they actually discussing? Like what? And it's a tough one. And I think, look, they're discussing how to use the control grid. It's all about implementing the control grid. COVID was all about implementing the control grid, really. Ultimately, apart from being a huge exchange of wealth, it was about implementing the control grid. That's the information they got out of it. And this new one, well, so part of what Julia Inman Grant gets on a regular basis, I'm not sure if it's daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever, but she gets reports from, the way I understand this information is she gets reports from the, as far as my research has gone, it's not actually individual posts that she has apparently had some dealings with some individual posts and taken sort of that up with directly the the platforms, but it's more about the vibe and the trends. So she can see trends emerging, right, before it sort of bubbles up into the big viral public domain on what's happening on these social media platforms within the Australian online sort of ecosystem, right? So she can see, so she's the first to know this sort of vibe or whatever, or this everyone's upset about. I'm making an example up. Everyone's starting to get really upset about gas exports or whatever. But she would know that. She would know that that's starting to gain traction before we might start seeing it, right? So that's a bubbling hot topic. The algorithm is sort of picking up that this is something that could be.
She can do something about it.
Whether she does, I don't know that. But part of her powers is getting direct report. So as far as I'm aware, we're one of the only countries in the world that actually gets regular information across those platforms, across that kind of private, social media, company platform to a government, like a country's governance provider in sort of real time. That's the, well, I don't know if it's real time, but it's like it's a weekly or monthly report that they get, and I just go, oh, I don't know about that. I also think, and Meta again are involved in a major lawsuit. Apparently, people are saying, allegedly, they're saying that that part of their algorithm is to promote like anxiety and body,
dysmorphia,
all that sort of stuff. But basically, what the way I understand it, right, is if someone's not feeling great and they're sort of attracted, or their algorithm is saying that this post is what I want to see, and it's not positive. Facebook don't care that it's not positive. They just want to keep them on the platform, so they keep showing this bad stuff, which can lead to a very fast and sharp downward spiral in the mental health of young people. That is definitely a problem. So I'm not saying that I know everything and it's all bad. And I think some sort of, and I've said this before, it's strange for me to admit Mr. Free Speech and hating on the algorithms. I don't think you can have Wild West where everyone can say whatever they want and put whatever pictures they want on an open source internet platform. So there has to be some intervention, because that's the way the world is. And again, if we all sort of woke up, got in touch with our, real consciousness, we probably wouldn't need that, because we would be doing those things. So it is a chicken or the egg thing. But I just wonder. I've gone on a bit of a sort of rant here, but the WEF, getting back to the point, is just for that alone, I could scream about that for another few hours, but the fact that they're really closing the gap, and what's changing in the world, and this is another thing that I've gone into with AI before, ironically enough, is basically the fact that it's not so much laws passing that is the problem in terms of our freedoms in the world. It's just policies by these large companies. So recently, News Daddy did a video post on the fact that that they're wanting to. Governments, and I think it's the American government in this instance, are wanting to somehow encourage or mandate that YouTube promote more official sourced information, which is your CNBC. So they want the algorithm to push the mainstream stuff more to combat misinformation, right? So that's just... and he said everyone needs to be aware of this, and this is a very, very dark time, because essentially they're dead in the water. Like some of these like CNN, CNBC, they sometimes only get 300,000 or 500,000 like watches in an evening, whereas Tucker Carlson will do a post and get a couple of million overnight.
You can't make someone watch anything. Exactly. You can't do it.
Exactly.
It can't be done.
Yeah.
And who was saying? There was an Australian government, and the friendly Geordie fella, he was talking about the Australian government they were talking about the misinformation that was released in COVID. And it's like, and he's going, you guys, you're the guys that did the misinformation. You guys were championing the misinformation.
Yes.
All the misinformation was coming from you guys who were talking about who did the misinformation and how they need to stop that from happening. And it's like, you're saying it now when we know it was you. You're still saying it. Do you know what I mean? It's
and if you look at how...
that's what I mean about keep coming back to... We're at a strange time, because the powers that be are still trying to say we've got to combat misinformation, and it's like, so combat yourselves. So cut yourselves out of the loop. So shut up. So be quiet. You know, cut yourselves off. They can't do anything about it though. They can't. They know that. So it doesn't work. You know, propaganda, misinformation, fake news, creating this whole thing. It backfires on you. You know, I thought it was classic that Trump was the one who came up with this word fake news back in 2016. This wasn't it? It was way back, and he's talking about fake news, and I was like, but you're talking about fake news. You know, you're saying that the real news is the one you like, and the fake news is the other one. And, you know, I can't tell the difference. Who can tell the difference?
You know, as soon as that they say, how do you tell if a politician's lying? His lips are moving, right? And I
Isn't
feel
it
like
a real estate agent?
Yeah, maybe. But I think, like, in terms of like my spider senses and my authenticity radar, as soon as a politician opens their mouths in, you know, when I'm watching, you know, it doesn't matter who it is, left side, right side, whatever.
But it's not even lying anymore.
It's absolute rubbish.
It's not
rubbish.
even. It's not even rubbish anymore. It's just. What about when the person said, because you know there'd been talk about the fact that America, you know, America's weapons are so much more expensive than the Iranian using the drones and getting really a lot of bang for their buck. You know, they're blowing up planes with a drone, with a couple of drones or whatever. It's you know, and the planes are worth so many millions, and the drones are worth 10,000 each or less than that, something like that. You know, the huge bang for their buck, and America's not, because the weapons are very, very expensive, and they've dropped a hell of a lot to the point where people have started saying, well, they've gone through 50% of the and then someone corners Trump the other day and says, apparently, you know, you've gone through a lot of weapons. We've got twice as many weapons as we had at the beginning of the war, is what he said.
Yeah.
We've got twice as many weapons. So there's no way, there's no world of mathematics. There's no mathematics that no matter how much they've been producing, no matter how many weapons they've been creating, they haven't got more weapons than when the war started. But he's not just saying they've got more. He's not saying we haven't gone through nearly as much as people have been saying. He's not saying that. So it's not just that he lies, it's that the degree to which he lies is just bonkers. It's
just
not
rolls off
he
the
doesn't
tongue.
He doesn't try to say a lie that can be believed. He wants to make the lie completely and utterly unbelievable lies.
Well, he just bamboozles the press in a way. If it's a strategy, it's very interesting, because you just got, they just kind of go, what? Like, what are you even talking about, man? Yeah, they're just like, what? But it's interesting.
Don't follow up on it, because it does confuse them. It shuts them up. It's because I do think it works. And again, no one's expecting the truth anymore. We're past that. So it is strange days indeed, though. The question is, where do the people get back on board? Where does the voice of the people? Is it going to be the voice of the Vox Pops from Katoomba, mate?
Yeah, who knows? Interesting, a little video came from our mate Pissed Magistus. He was talking about the elites, and this wasn't the point of what he was saying, right? So I was how I got to this was I was thinking about Trump, and he's building this ballroom, which a lot of people are doing reporting to find out that it's actually a underground bunker that is a quasi.
Well, he's always said that.
Yeah, an infrastructure sort of thing, and people saying, I mean, again, this. last assassination attempt was so strange. The guy was apparently a quite well-known, revered engineer that decided to just storm the gates. And there were some people that went there. This is, again, according off some random people on the internet. There's some people that went there that actually left because they're like, this is really odd. There's no security. They didn't check any... they didn't check any tickets. There was no QR codes, and basically they walked. Some security guard said, "Oh, do you have a ticket?" They said yes, and then they were just ferried on into the room like it ain't no thing, right? And there's the vice president, the president, like all these people said, like it didn't really sort of add up. Surprise, surprise. We could roll around in that, but the point is these. I can't even remember the point actually, but these AI. Data centers so this one reporter traced the contracts and who's bidding for the contracts and where it's all coming from, and it's apparently another underground AI sort of bunker. But anyway, I got back to I remember my point. So Pismagistus was saying all these billionaires and elites are building these underground bunkers, right? So you got Jeff Bezos. A lot of the time it's in Maui. And as a throwaway, it wasn't the point of... New
Zealand too.
Yeah, New Zealand. But it wasn't the point of it, but it was a throwaway line that he said that it was because they know that no algorithm can overcome the public backlash that's going to ensue. So the bunkers are protect them from us, which I thought was a really interesting, and I kind of like that. So they're not, because everyone's going, oh, why are all these billionaires building bunkers and underground? Like, then they're really big. They're like, 10 stories underground, different layers of security and all the rest of it. It's not because they think that they have some information about a asteroid hitting the place or nuclear war. It's they're worried about the public catching on quicker than we should.
They're worried about chaos ensuing because we are in a time where we're right on the verge of... They know that the empire is crumbling, and they know that they want to have a safe place. They want a safe haven. So, I mean, I think, maybe they're worried about the people, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's kind of they're worried about the future. They're worried about their own billions. So they're wanting to put their money into something that's real and concrete and underground and hidden. There's been some good literature about those sorts of stories.
Well, you always say and Professor Zhang is of the exact same opinion that essentially the Western Empire is in the beginning phases of way overplaying its hand, and it will all go absolutely pear-shaped because they're fighting with hubris. And so his prediction is essentially that this Iran war will literally go on for potentially a decade, right? But during this, before we really get excited about it, there's going to be another war on another front, and then another war on another front. It's just going to be this never ending. And he's looking at the way Donald Trump is gearing up. He's already been to Ford and GMC, starting to get them to build artillery and manufacturing tanks and all the rest of it. So he's gearing up for America to become rich by being a war. A war economy, essentially, right? Which is what he's saying.
That's the way it's been for a long time now. I mean, it's been going that way. I mean, Afghanistan was how long was it? 12 years, 14 years.
And you think
a
about
long time, and they spent. It wasn't huge, and it was just bubbling, simmering away in the background, kind of thing. It wasn't like wasn't really that unsettling, though, because it wasn't really going anywhere, was it?
Well, it's funny because the focus of people's attentions are like that is part of the war, right? So I think that a dude on the internet, and I think I've said this before, but he reckons, and this is so out there, but he said he believes that the the Russia-Ukraine war was to distract us from COVID, right? So if everything calmed down in the world since COVID, I think people would be really poking at that big time, right? Because we would have had time. So you look at the world events, right? The assassinations, the wars, and everything. We can't get our breath from the last one before the next major bizarre happening happens in the world. It's just go like, and people that I really respect the people on the internet that stick to their lane in a way, because everyone just went Charlie Kirk. Now everyone's gone to Iran, and you think, man, like there's those OGs, right, in those dark corners that are still on 9/11, right? They're still on it every day, looking at documents, digging through stuff, and they're finding some awesome stuff. There's people that are still on COVID, still on Ukraine. Like, what's the go?
Well, COVID's still unfolding, and there's because all the medical data is getting unbelievable, and I saved an incredibly powerful. So you feed all the data into AI, and AI comes out saying absolutely autism is caused by vaccines. So that's not about COVID, that's about vaccines and autism. But someone has fed in every single study that's been done into 3 different AIs, Claude, ChatGPT, and one other, and all 3 of them say there's no way you can look at all these studies without drawing the conclusion that autism is caused by childhood vaccines.
Wow. Well, I think, that's big. I wouldn't
it's
say
huge.
That, there could be like autism in a completely unvaccinated kid. I think I would preface that by saying I would believe it if it was a massive contributor. I don't think you can say it's the only cause. Just knowing that this episode will end up on the internet.
That's not what I'm saying. I wasn't saying it's the only cause, but no, there is a causal link between. There is a causal link between. Between vaccines, and it was just a report that I saw. So check it out for yourself. Do your own research, folks. But there is a lot of stuff coming through, and I think it's ChatGPT is good for that sort of stuff.
Well, I would. I mean, I did.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I did I switched, so I did some research for the show, and then I had to switch to Venice halfway through, and the answers were completely different. So I was actually researching, right? I was recently on another radio show that popped up in my feed, a really well-known one. I can't remember what channel it is. Who cares? But they do a fun thing, right? Because it's a mainstream kind of thing, and they all put tinfoil hats on, and they were talking about the moon landing, funnily enough. And there was a guy that said, if you look at the photo of the 3 escapees from Alcatraz, right, they are absolutely dead ringers for the 3 astronauts that allegedly went to the moon the first time, right? It is crazy. Like, and when you compare the photos, it's like wild, right? And I think I asked ChatGPT that, and it said, "Oh no, and it just went completely off-piste, like completely." And I was like, it didn't even. The answer was so blurry that I didn't even think that it might have even understood. And I was like, okay, I'll try Venice. And it said, yeah, there are definitely conspiracy theories that say that, because the timing of the Alcatraz escape, and then all of a sudden these guys are NASA astronauts. You know what I mean? And the photos, you got to check out the photos yourself. It's eerie, like how similar they all look. I mean, that's wild.
All I know is there's a lot of wild stuff about the moon missions, folks. Are we going to hear from our sponsors, mate?
Yeah, we're going to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back after this.
Let's crank.
With Axel and Positive Altitude every Tuesday arvo from 4 to 6 p.m.
Yeah, turn it up to 11, why don't you, on Radio Blue Mountains. So it's been we've sort of covered a fair few rabbit holes on this particular show, haven't we, Trov?
Mate, hopping here, hopping there, hopping everywhere.
Yeah, so we'll hit the streets next. We had a little break from our Voxies this week, but we'll be hitting the streets again. We've got to think about a question. I actually would like to maybe see what the good people of Katoomba think about AI. And I don't know whether the question is too loaded to ask whether, like, what are your main concerns about AI? I know it's loaded, but I think you get some really interesting responses. They might go, oh, well, actually, who knows what they'll say? What do you think they'll say?
Yeah, I think that's good. And it's not really concerns. You should have concerns about AI, shouldn't you? Because there's a lot of people saying some really wild things. I mean, it's a very common view in Silicon Valley that it's very likely that they will wipe out humanity. And not only is that a common view, I promise you it is a commonly held view that AI will wipe out humanity. It's not a fringe view. It's not a really small view. It's there's people that say there's different percentages being thrown around, but not only is it a commonly held view, it's quite common that people don't think that's a bad thing. So Silicon Valley is a very strange place culturally. It's an unusual domain.
It is strange. I mean, look, I'm more in the camp now of, and I was going to bring it up, we're probably running out of time, of this, realm being a carbon copy or some kind of simulation and some way to have divine spark souls in a particular area for a particular reason. So I think if AI is part of the dark forces, I think they need us here. So wiping us out really kind of doesn't help the thing. I've never, honestly, I worry about many things, Troff. Many things I'm worried about constantly, rattling around my head. AI wiping us out entirely, I'm not so
It's
sure.
not on my list. I'm just saying the psychology of my point really isn't about the possibility of that, because I think it's more the fact that they believe this is the worry. Is that we've got some very strange psychology going on there in Silicon Valley.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to say good night, farewell, and keep doing exactly what you're doing, because if we end in 20 seconds, it saves me another 20 minutes of editing.
Is that right?
Well, it comes out in half-an-hour blocks, and I don't have to muck around half an hour.
All right, folks. Heaps of love to each and every mother-loving one of you.
Yeah, keep it real, guys. Peace, love, and mung beans.